Thank you very much, and please excuse me for being late for your meeting. As you may know, the European Union, or some of you may know, I guess now after that poll, the European Union is working very hard to solve a lot of the energy problems that are caused by the unprovoked aggression of Russia against Ukraine. And today some very high-level decisions have been taken, and a few more are coming before the end of the week, I expect. Today a task force has been created for to deal with some of the supply problems that we are going to face in the coming months, and to my surprise I was appointed to it. So we've just had some of the first meetings about that. I don't want to take up the entire meeting talking about the present crisis. In the long view, the present crisis is not or should not be seen as eclipsing the existential crisis that we face from climate change, and that is the work that we were doing until very recently, until we've been dealing with this current problem. I just wanted to, though, take up one of the points Federico was talking about, the importance of youth. Several years ago, we set up an initiative for energy sufficiency on European islands, and we wanted, at the same time as we were setting that up, to set up a youth climate network that would create small teams of people, multidisciplinary teams of people who could assist communities to become sustainable. These small groups would be composed of technical, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering type groups, but also social science background people who could work on creating communities, people who could work on anthropology and such like, and then an environmental, in the sort of everyday sense of environmental team as well, people who knew about biodiversity and such like. And we wanted to create this European Environmental Corps and send them in small groups to islands to advise on how to transform the islands from what they are now, which is primarily diesel-fired electricity generation, to renewables. And whilst we got the overall idea through with regard to decarbonizing islands, both in the European context and at a global level, the specific proposal on involving youth and youth teams was stopped. And the reason for that, coming from the political level, was that there was a belief there was no interest from youth to do these types of things. And it was one of the biggest surprises I've ever had of a proposal that we put to the College of Commissioners, that it was not adopted. So my message, I guess, to Federico is that you need to get it over much more forcefully that you are interested in doing these things. And you might even consider, because we have a new college now, a new president, Mrs. von der Leyen, that you as a group could make a proposal like that, to say there is the possibility of European youth to self-organize and to create a group of people who would be willing to assist in the technical, anthropological, social, environmental aspects of the energy transition, and to work with local communities to do that. There is a great need for that, because nearly all of the professional advice that one can get in this area is far too expensive for most communities. And there could be an opening there for a youth-based framework to message about Federico's point. Anyway, what are we doing about the fossil fuel phase out? Fossil fuel phase out is very, very important. I didn't know about the Manchester University study, but I'd be very happy to receive it. What I can tell you is what we call the Uganda question. When we have been discussing about fossil fuel phase out in international frameworks, once we were asked by a senior official in Uganda, it's all very well you, the European Union, talking about the fossil fuel phase out, but you're not actually doing it. And you're not stopping the development of fossil fuel projects, and you are not advocating for your own phase out in terms of production. And the response to that question resulted in the European Commission adopting, for the first time ever, I think at a global level, a multilateral proposal to keep fossil fuels in the ground. That is the moratorium on Arctic oil, gas and coal extraction, which was adopted last year as the official policy for the European Union. And that was a very important, first time the European Union said, instead of going for cheapness, for specifically of oil, gas and coal, we will try and work in our own backyard, in this case, to keep fossil fuels in the ground. Not only will we do that, but we take the promise that we will not in the future buy oil, gas and coal from the Arctic region, by those countries outside of the European Union who may produce it. And that's a very strong first step. Moving beyond that, I can imagine that in the future we will be looking towards expanding those types of decisions on moratoriums to other parts of the world and to other sectors, particularly coal and oil. But it's a good first step. As we look at that, we also see that we are coming to an end game for the European Union's oil, gas and coal consumption, irrespective of what's happening in Ukraine today and in Russia today, where we are scrambling to buy new oil, gas and coal from new sources. Nonetheless, in the period between 2025 and 2030, we are going to enter into an area, a decline for oil, gas and coal consumption in the European Union. Paradoxically, an expansion of imports, and then after 2030, a complete imports and consumption. And what this means is that we have to prepare the countries around us who are supplying oil, gas and coal to us for that new future. And I think it's linked, but not a cause, but I think it's linked when you realize just how much oil, gas and coal feature in the national accounts of the countries that supply us with those resources. For example, Russia depends very much on oil, gas and coal for its national accounts and for its national budget. And without that money, there is a huge, huge gap in their national accounting system. We have to think about how that type of rundown of fossil fuel resources, what that will impact and how that will impact countries like Algeria, Iraq, Iran, the Middle East generally, Nigeria, for example. All of these countries have resource-dependent economies, and those resource-dependent economies are dependent on the consumption of the European Union. But we have decided to not use those resources post-2030, tailing off to 2050. And I think that is a very important challenge that we face. We have the other challenges, of course, within the European Union of making the decarbonization process successful, but outside of the European Union, we have done very little to prepare the ground for the choices and decisions that the countries that supply us have to make. Today, as part of my strategy and foresight work, we can see 3 scenarios for the phasing out of oil, gas, and coal in terms of how we will choose which countries will supply us in the future. The first of those, and I think the one that will be most likely to happen, is a choice based on the relative environmental performance of each supplier. So how much methane, how much CO2, how much waste is produced by creating 1 unit of energy in the European Union. This approach has already been adopted in the European Union's methane strategy, where we are moving towards a life cycle analysis of methane emissions along the fossil gas supply chain and coal supply chain to the European Union. And we will be in a position to rank supplies by methane emissions to the European Union. And I can expect from that that the worst performing countries will be the first to be removed from the supply list post 2025. Another approach is the approach adopted by countries like the United States or Saudi Arabia, large exporting potential countries, where simply the price will be the issue. That will be the only criteria. They have the lowest cost of production. They believe that as a result, they will be always the last supplier when compared to all the others. High-cost suppliers of oil, gas, and coal will be the first to exit the market in that scenario. And then a third scenario that we are looking at is a political scenario where we think it is very likely that we will get to the point where hydrocarbon use drops dramatically, but some countries will be much more exposed politically than others. And these countries are the ones with large, young populations. North Africa springs to mind, Nigeria springs to mind, where we need to stabilize the country through a demographic transition, which is yet to come. And I think there is a series of problems, political questions that need to be addressed. And we are preparing the ground for such a discussion in the period 2024-2025 for the next College of the European Union. But again, there needs to be choices made and decisions made that we cannot yet anticipate. But I would very much welcome an input from communities like this one into such a discussion for the future. And I'm hoping that this year we will be able to set up a forum for discussing those types of questions in the future. And I'm very happy to make this network a partner of those discussions. So those are the 3 scenarios: a climate environmental scenario, a cost scenario, and a political scenario. We will need to work on those in the coming years. And in the immediate term, we will have to deal with the consequences of what is a terrible, terrible, unprovoked attack on a European country by a near neighbor. We will go back to dealing with the immediate problems, but we must not lose sight of the long-term issues that we need to address in order to meet our climate targets by 2050. So I hope I've said a few words that will help you animate your discussion. I'm here to take a few questions if you need, or if you have any. Of course, please always reach out to the European Commission, me personally, if you wish to have an ongoing discussion. I'll put my email in the chat, and please contact me if you wish.